Now for Book Chat, we have something special. Now in my hand, Technology Disruption, to Wrestle or to Unleash, by Taiwo Fajoru. Now, this book is amazing. I feel like it's one of the books I would need at this time and age. It's an African response to a global perspective and demand for new creative enterprise and innovative technology. And of course, the author is joining us on the show. Yeah, thank you for joining us on the show, sir.
Thank you.
Now, first question: why are you disrupting me?
Yes.
Which is the opening, what you opened with, the first chapter in the book. That's usually what people would ask, or that would be their response to any new thing that is happening, that is sort of upending everything that they've ever known. Yes. Is that where you're coming from with this book?
Yes. I mean, it's a conversation starter that, you know, and someone, you and I could engage in a conversation, and the question could come up, why are you disrupting me? And then so the pondering is engaged, that why are you disrupting, what is disruption about? And then so that kicks in several other questions and all that. So it also demarcates our response towards disruption. I mean, do we want to wrestle? When you go down to see what disruptions are, on one side, you want to wrestle it down because it challenges the status quo. It challenges what is on now to cause a change for the path, for new thing. And then when a new thing is created and is adopted or adapted, they would need to unleash it for growth.
I like how you started the book, you know, at the beginning, in the introduction, where it seemed you were talking about the fact that it seemed like innovation began in Africa. That's right. You talked about Egypt, and you know, way back when, the center of global knowledge. Everybody came to Egypt to come and learn something, and then of course there was the invasion of Egypt and all of that. What do you think now accounts for the fact that even though Africa was at the forefront of innovation, we now seem to have taken the back seat and we're playing catch up with the rest of the world?
But the problem started from then. We put, and we're still doing it now, we put everything as, we put it in a mystical form, in such a way that thing that could have helped us, and then when they put it like that, they didn't allow other part of Africa to enjoy it. They kept it to themselves. And there's little to what you can keep to yourself. One way or the other, some people will penetrate your ranks and they will use it for their own goal. And that was what happened to Egypt at that time. So when Alexander the Great got into that, being someone who is after knowledge, he got the Egyptian library, moved it to Europe, and then allowed Aristotle to intervene into that. And Aristotle created a school, a peripatetic school that lasted for 2,000 years, school of scientific research, nothing to be compared with it. Until after, in fact, in syllogistic logic, but for 150 years could not be challenged until further thought start challenging it. And that gave
most of this was gotten from Africa at that initial stage. So it just seemed like even that knowledge, that body of knowledge that we had was taken from us.
Yes.
Now, at some points, you know, when I was reading this book, I just felt like you're also telling us to wake up to the realities of the 21st century, of what's happening, and of the changes that we're seeing all around us. And you also use live examples. Yes. You mentioned a number of Nigerians who have introduced what you might call disruption. I like the story of Jason Njoku, for instance, where, you know, after starting several businesses, he then eventually found one that was disruptive enough to change the industry. What should young Nigerians learn from reading this book?
You see, the word young gives them the opportunity to start quickly, make the mistakes, and then recover. Just like the Bill Gates and the Steve Jobs of this world did. They started early, and they took the risk. They made their mistakes. Even Steve Jobs was chased out of the company that they started, and they came back again. You won't believe that he died before 60 years old, but what he has created is standing so strong today. So young Nigerians cannot afford to wait. They have to be calculative, take the risk early enough, and be solution-minded, and then start early. You will make the mistake, you will be corrected, you will correct yourself, and then you will pull strong. By the time you are early 30, you're standing strong. And then you'll be, and then because our world now, we have a very good demographic, youth age. Technology can allow Nigeria and Africa to catch up.
At some point, this book reads a little bit like a motivational text as well, because there's some parts where you were talking about the fact that fear pulls you back. And
pulls you back. Action is
a
cure to fear.
Exactly. You said action is a cure to fear. And I said to myself that, okay, this is instructive. A lot of times people feel like, look, let me find something that, let me find a space that I can survive in and not take too many risks. Should we be taking risks in Africa, in Nigeria?
Of course, the lesser you take risk, the lesser opportunities open to you. Risk allowed you opportunities. It's a vista of opportunities. So when we take risk, either at a young age, even after 40, when you take risk on yourself, you will find out that you will not stay on the idle way of things anymore. You will be pulled out of the idle way and then get into action. So when you take risk, you get into action and then you're able to produce results. You have to produce results.
So there's something you described in the book called the enterprise of creative thinking.
Yes.
It sounds like big English, you know, sometimes, and it's scary as well. So when you say creative thinking, even business owners, when you have an employee that is doing a little bit too much creative thinking, you become suspicious of that one. Yeah. But what were you trying to say with that concept of creative thinking?
Well, either we like it or not, we are already engaged in creative thinking. The moment you breathe in and out every day, you go out and all that. And creative thinking not necessarily have to be a formal thing. Everybody engaged in creative thinking, one way or the other. And so for those who want to formalize it, imagine the creative industry we have. Now the creative industry in the US is massive now, driving the engine room for growth. So when people engage in creative thinking, thinking deep, to do something that can affect the lives positively is creative thinking. It doesn't have to be a book thing. You understand? You can create something and the solution starts out. It doesn't pin someone down to studying 4 years, 8 years in the university. You can be whatever you're doing, you're creative about it, and you create solutions. And so when you engage in that, you'll be involved in creative thinking. And so we cannot afford, and when you're being involved, you want to move it to enlightened entrepreneurship. You cross that bar from creative thinking to enlightened entrepreneurship, and then we will create, you know.
Wow, Taiwo Fajoru, thank you so much for joining us this morning. The book is Technology Disruption, to Wrestle or to Unleash. And I would say to all young people out there, unleash, take that risk. That's what he has said. You know, take that risk and, you know, do something different. Don't move with the crowd. There was a diagram there where everybody was doing this, and then there was one guy who was on this other side. Amazing, amazing book. Thank you so much for writing it and for inspiring all of us. We're going to take a quick break now and be back with a conversation with Aderogba Adidiji on the show.